October 21st, Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick signed a proclamation declaring the first ever Immigrant Entrepreneurship Month to recognize the significant contribution of immigrant businesses owners in the Commonwealth. That event marked the launch of the New Americans Integration Institute, a new entity led by the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition. Joining me this morning to give us some insight into this new initiative are Marcia Hone. She's director of the Public Education Institute at the Immigrant Learning Center, Jill Chang, owner of Chang & Tsui Publishers, and Vineet Nishawan, a high-tech entrepreneur and executive in residence at Boston University. Also joining us is Frank Soltz. He's communications director of the Massachusetts Immigrants and Refugee Advocacy Coalition. Welcome to Urban Update. Thanks for coming in. Marcia, if I could start with you, talk to me about the importance and significance of the governor recognizing the importance of the immigrant contributions in the Commonwealth.
Okay. Well, since 2003, the Public Education Institute at the Immigrant Learning Center has been researching and documenting the economic contributions of immigrant entrepreneurs in the Commonwealth, which, you know, are from storefront businesses that revitalize neighborhoods to growth companies like Jill's to the high-tech and science arena as Vineet's is, and showing what they bring both in terms of revenue and job creation to the Commonwealth. So to have this formally recognized by the governor is really makes us very excited.
Mm-hmm. So. Now, Jill Chang, you're from China.
Yes.
And talk to me about, I guess, very briefly, I guess, your story. But you emigrated here, built a business, and I guess how do you see this, you know, affecting the initiative we're talking about today?
Well, I was born in China and grew up in Tokyo, Japan, and came to the U.S. as a college student, and had no plans to be an entrepreneur initially, but circumstances dictated that I experienced some prejudice, ethnic prejudice, when I was in college, and so I was very motivated by that to find a way to educate the Western world about Asia. So that's how I began the journey into an Asian studies publishing company. And happily, 30 years later, it's become a successful international company. And so the motivation comes from my personal experience coming here.
Okay. And Vineet Nishawan, you are from India?
That's right.
And you've come here. You've been a successful entrepreneur yourself in the high-tech arena. You're teaching at Boston University. What, I guess, what are you trying to get across to your students and think needs to get across to everyone else about the contributions of immigrants in the Commonwealth and in America?
Well, you know, I've mainly been focused on technology entrepreneurship, and so my knowledge of immigrants and technology entrepreneurship is probably the deepest. And what's interesting is about half the companies that have been founded in California were founded by foreign-born entrepreneurs. In Massachusetts, that number is about 30%. So almost a third of the successful technology startups in the state have been founded by somebody born other than in the U.S. And that inspires me greatly, because that, combined with the fact that the majority of the graduate students in our universities in technology, in STEM, as they call it, science, technology, science, tech, engineering, tend to be foreign-born. And so I think that's an interesting engine. You combine the two, and you got lots of high-growth companies hiring Americans.
Frank Soltz, Massachusetts Immigrants and Refugee Advocacy Coalition. Talk to me about, I guess, your experiences. I mean, the immigrants come, you advocate for immigrants who are trying to start businesses. What do you see?
We were fortunate enough to pair our launching of an institute with this Immigrant Entrepreneurship Declaration by the governor. This is a private, nonprofit institute that we've started, where we're trying to focus the issue on problems that immigrants face when they come to this country and try to fully integrate. And one of those problems is the problem of starting your own business. A lot of people end up doing it with money that they've saved in a shoebox or that their brother-in-law has lent them. And we want to try to figure out a way to pair them up with banks or with other entrepreneurs so that so that the process can become easier. Because as your guests were saying, immigrant entrepreneurship is incredibly vital to the economic health of this state. And we have to recognize that, I think, and make that message known to the world, and then also try to make it an easier process for people.
Marsha, back to you here, probably for the final word here. An interesting statistic that from your institute is that immigrants are more likely to start a business than native-born citizens.
Yes, this is certainly true that in the United States, in every economic census since 1880, the immigrants have been more likely to start a business than the native-born. And I think this is because immigrants have, great capacity to take risks and courage to do so. They've, left everything familiar behind them to strike out into a new world. Sometimes it is economic necessity. Sometimes it is highly personal motivation, like Jill's.
And very, very briefly, we only have seconds here, but I mean, in the context of the debate over immigration we're having today, what do you think is the most important thing to be said about immigrants, entrepreneurs?
That they are assets to America, that they create jobs, that they generate revenue for both the states and local communities and for the nation as a whole, and that they need to be recognized and celebrated for this and connected into the economic and community development systems where they're largely disconnected now.
Okay, and I'm afraid we could go on for a long time, but we'll have to leave it right there. Marsha Hone, Vineet Nishawan, Frank Sultz, and Jill Chang, thank you all for coming in. And I guess here's to celebrating immigrant entrepreneurs in Massachusetts.